Welcome to Which Side Do You Want, where we talk all things tennis. I'm your co-host, Ruffin Thornton, and I'll be joined by my good friend, James Skinner.
Unlike most tennis podcasts, we cover hot topics, from the lawns to the concrete, from the pros to the park, and all things in between. Welcome to Which Side Do You Want?
All right, welcome back, tennis and racket sport fans, to episode 3 of Which Side Do You Want? I'm here with my boy, Coach Skinner of Monacan High School. So, Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Ruffin. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
See, how's the season looking so far?
Well, we're still conditioning.
Still conditioning.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So at the end of February and mid-March, we'll know what we're working with.
Okay.
We're getting the players coming out, and so we'll see.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing about the stories of how Monacan is doing well and you know, how impressive their coach is and that sort of thing.
Well, we shall see.
We'll see.
We shall see.
Well, let's cut right to it. You know, this is an important month. This is the second month of the year, and this is a very big month for us. You know,
yes, it is.
Black History Month. So before we get into some of our topics for today, let's talk about what's going on in the world of tennis, or at least on the professional side.
Okay.
So this week in tennis, we've got the Dallas Open at the ATP, and it's an ATP 250 event down in Dallas, Texas, where Riley Opelka is the defending champion. Down in South America, the Cordoba Open, another ATP 250 event being played in Cordoba, Argentina, where the defending champion is Albert Ramos Vinolas.
He's there. Yeah.
And in Europe, we have a third ATP event. We've got the Sud de France in Montpellier being played in Montpellier, France, where defending champion is Kazakhstan player Alexander Bublik. You know, that's a baller.
Yeah, he is something very talented, but unpredictable.
Unpredictable. You're right.
He's a character. I enjoy watching him. He's a character.
He is. On the ladies' side, we have the WTA 500 level event in Abu Dhabi. Where this is an inaugural event, so it's going to be interesting. A lot of the top players are playing, so it should be a big event this year.
They're paying money.
Paying money, especially in the Middle East.
Yes, they pay well.
And in Europe, we have another 250 event. We've got the Austrian ladies Linz from Linz, Austria, defended by Alison Risk. Alison Risk Armitrage.
Right.
And it hadn't been played since 2021. So, you know, it's going to be good to get back in the fold.
Good.
But what else did we miss the last week?
Well, the only thing I would talk about is that they had the Davis Cup qualifying matches. Then with the new format now to try to shorten this thing, they have a qualifying event for the top teams to participate in, and you are seeded just like a tournament. Yeah. And then the top teams come out will be able to participate in the Davis Cup competition. Okay. And just to shorten it, United States is in.
Yeah. They put in their secondary players, but they took care of business. Who they played? Do you remember?
I'm not sure who they played. Right now, if you hadn't asked me, I would have told you. And
that's all it takes.
But we won,
right?
And then there was some other little upset. Sweden won. The Emer brothers played outstanding tennis. They came from behind and took out. I think they played Bosnia Herzegovina or something.
Okay.
But anyway, so it's going to be interesting to see. We get some faces that. We probably haven't heard of or seen, but that's that team competition. So looking forward to it. Okay, cool.
And on the ladies' side last week, we didn't really talk about it, but it kind of leads into our topic for today. Alicia Parks.
Oh.
She won her first tournament as a pro in Lyon, France, where she took out Caroline Garcia.
Yep, local.
So that kind of begs the question, the ladies... let's just say this. African-American players, specifically the ladies, they've taken care of business. You think about, with this being Black History Month, Black players on the women's side have been represented for a long time.
Yes.
Starting out with Althea Gibson.
Yes.
But going on after her success, you had players like Zena Garrison, Laurie McNeil, Chanda Rubin, and then of course you had the Williams sisters. And the ladies after the Williams sisters have, kind of held the torch pretty good. You got Sloane, who's a Grand Slam winner. Madison Keys, who
got
Grand Slam
finalist.
Yep. You got Coco Gauff, who's been to 2 finals so far, and now Alicia, who looks like she could be the next heir apparent. She's got a lot of promise and potential.
Very poised. That final against Caroline Garcia, she did so well.
Right.
Just remained, even though she was on foreign soil, against the local favorite, but she held herself together, and that serve is
killer. You're right.
Serve is lethal, boy.
But like I said, the women, they've got their ducks in a row, so to speak, and they're fine. They're part of American tennis, and they've represented the country very well. But what about on the men's side? Why is it that African American players don't have the same opportunities or have taken the same advantages that the sport has given them? Like our last champion from Richmond, since we're from Richmond, Virginia, Arthur Ashe. They name a whole stadium after him.
Yeah.
So he must have been pretty important. You would think that with our abilities here in this country, the athleticism that African Americans are perceived to have over other athletes, why aren't we doing better? So what are your thoughts about it?
I'm gonna tell you, Ruffin, that is a question that a lot of people have asked. We wonder when will we see Black male players reach those upper echelons? We've had some very good, talented African American male tennis players, but they've not been able to win Grand Slam finals. They've not been able to maintain or stay in the top ranks. And we've had some very good players who have done well. And I think there's several factors that go into that.
Mm-hmm.
And it has nothing. I don't think it has anything to do with our ability to play this game, or for men to be. I think we can play this game if we're devoted to it. But I think there's some factors out there that contribute to that.
Sure.
And I saw it. There was a article written by a noted sports writer and columnist William Roden. And he wrote online this article he had about where Black male tennis players are, and just how, because the sport of tennis, it needs those iconic athletes to draw new generation of fans.
Right. You got
I was just going to say, I will read real quick what he said, which I thought hit a point on.
Okay.
And he just said, the great young Black athlete is playing football, basketball during the winter.
Right.
And the rest are being snatched up by soccer or baseball. And he also said these sports have developed highly efficient systems for identifying and refining talent from the youth level to the pros.
So let me just add to that. So what you're saying is these other sports that are in the public eye, we just had the Pro Bowl on the NFL side. The NBA All-Star game is coming up. Baseball, which used to be the national pastime, they've all had this organizational machine that kind of identified talent and captured them. And why isn't that tennis can't do the same thing?
On Ruffin, on any given Saturday, in any city, any country town, anywhere in the United States, you'll go and you will see little boys playing football.
Right.
You will go and you'll see little boys playing basketball. And you don't have to go far to find a place to sign up to play any of those sports, or baseball, or soccer. Soccer is even larger now.
Right.
So it's easy for them to start playing. And it's tennis is a little different animal.
Right.
And one other thing that Bill Roden said in the article that I think kind of hits it also, that we've talked about as far as some of the holdbacks of tennis, is that the tennis industry is still barricaded in this, or has been barricaded for so long in the country club ivory towers.
Right.
And is only now realizing that making U.S. tennis great again means inclusion and diversity.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Okay. So we have to open this game up, and we have to make it more accessible to more kids. We have to open up programs that will bring them in because let's understand it's tough because basketball, football, they're sucking them up. We're getting in the best athletes are going to these sports and they're being pulled to these sports.
Right.
No one pulls those great athletes to tennis. You have to want, that child has to want to play tennis.
Sure.
Not necessarily. When you're coming up, you and I we both played basketball, rec league basketball, then school basketball.
Right.
No one told me to go play basketball. It was just there. It was just there. No one told me. And they just said, hey, we got this league, go inside, let's go. And it was easy. Next thing you know, boom, you're playing basketball.
Right.
And there's a process that's going to develop your play all the way up to high school and beyond. It's set.
Right. So, we growing up, since we're a little bit older, we didn't have the same level of distractions, if you want to call it, that kids today have.
Sure.
But we were always doing something. We weren't sedentary.
Right.
Not to say that we didn't play video games. They did. They were in their early stages, but maybe not as exciting. But we also got a chance to go out and play. And the opportunities that presented themselves included other sports.
We
basketball,
all did.
Football, baseball.
Yeah.
I actually went and did competitive swimming growing up.
Yeah. It was because it was available.
Right.
There was a pool nearby.
Sure.
Same with me. We had a rec center. I grew up in Virginia Beach, but we grew up at the same time. There was a variety of sandlot.
Right.
We didn't have organized leagues. We just met at the park. Hey, boys at SeaTac Park and come to Red Wing Park and play us in basketball. And then we'd come out there and they would come up or we would go to them. This was just kids just playing sports. It might have been football. It might have been, touch football or flag football. It might have been baseball or softball, whatever. And so those things were, you just got into that game. And then when you got better, there was always already a system set up to bring you in, and tennis just does not have that. And then I think that's what brings it more so on the men. There's just too many options for the men to go to, the better athletes. Women don't have those many options. So they take advantage of the ones that give them the best opportunities. And for women, tennis has been at the forefront. What other sport is as egalitarian as tennis is as far as men and women?
Yeah.
Which one? We watched women's tennis. Now, there's still some discrepancies, and women still aren't paid as much as most men players and everything. And we understand that and know some things we're working on. But as far as the profile of the sport, the women's profile is just as high as the men's profile.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know any other sport. It doesn't exist in basketball, doesn't exist in any other sports where there's always that. There's no balance there, but tennis has the most balance of most sports. Maybe, I don't know, if you're into golf, maybe somebody might say golf, and that's why, women are taking advantage of that opportunity.
They are. They're given those advantages, and like you said, they take advantage of them. Yep. Instead of being spoon-fed, hey, if you're a decent basketball player, maybe we can get you on the team and you can get a scholarship. Yep. Not to say that the ladies aren't given those same opportunities in the same sports. Certainly not football, but basketball and but we'll just leave basketball as a prime example.
Because that's the one that both men and women play.
Both men and women play and they excel at as African Americans. But you don't see the same level of interest in tennis on the boys' side as you do on the women's side.
It's a harder sell, Ruffin. We became tennis players because we wanted to be tennis players.
Sure.
We were both inspired by Arthur Ashe, and I wanted to get out there and hit a tennis ball.
Right.
And we were I would say during the tennis boom of the 70s, we probably wouldn't have been as much as an anomaly as we would be today, because there were just more opportunities to bring people in. Unfortunately, kids like us, at that time, because you had the National Junior Tennis League that was blowing up.
Right. And it's still there.
Still there. And you had those programs there that could get you out there. It's just hard. It's a harder sell now because the team sports are just, they sucking them in, and the system is already there set up. And most parents, they see that they want to see their kid play football. They want to see their kid play basketball because they think there's a better opportunity for them to.
But Yeah,
right.
I mean, but we know that's not quite the case. I'll use an example of Tiger Woods. You know, he's a little bit younger than both of us, but you know, he wanted to be a golfer. Well, imagine what it was like for Tiger being the one and only. You know, to go through the ranks of a country club and being an elite sport like tennis is.
Yeah.
You know, going from country club to prove that you can play and be as good as and excel as he did. You know, and if you remember, at Tiger's height, there was a boom on golf.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh
everybody was playing black, white, didn't matter.
Huge numbers.
Why wasn't there? I mean, on the men's side, there hasn't been that galvanizing figure that can actually make players on the men's side or on the boys' side, if you will, want to play the sport of tennis, just like the Williams sisters have inspired so many players of African-American descent.
I mean, look at the young girls coming up, the black girls that are coming up and playing the sport, but not just Asian girls. And it's so funny. All of them will say they were inspired by Serena. I have Serena's picture on my wall. I have Venus' picture poster on my wall. I dreamed about playing her. And I think that what your point, you made a great point, because I think that comes to what Bill Roden was saying in his article. He was just saying that we need to try to get these black athletes into the sport, because they're major draws. I mean,
absolutely.
They bring something to the game. I mean, Serena and Venus, they brought something to the game that was special.
They did.
And I think that it grew the sport, especially for women, it grew the sport like through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
And you think about it. I mean, what would happen, man, if Frances Tiafoe wins the U.S. Open? How big would that be for the sport? Or if he got won a Wimbledon title,
right?
How huge would that be for the sport?
I think it would be great, but
just with his personality and everything, or even not just the African American. If Francis, can you imagine if Felix Ali Aja Asim, if he won the French Open,
right?
And it would just be huge for the game.
It would be, FAA being I guess an African American lookalike, we do know he's Canadian.
Yeah, but I think he speaks French, because I think his parents are from one of the African province, I think, where French is a language. Anybody, if I messed that up, let me know.
Well, I think they speak multiple languages.
Right, he does.
Canada,
he does. He does speak several different languages.
Anyone that looks French like us is going to have a major influence. Yeah. But here's another aspect that we don't think about. Like I said, you and I, we both grew up playing multiple sports. We played basketball, we played football, we played soccer, we ran track. We did all of that. Yep. We spent a lot of time things outside. But at one point, not to say that we didn't still continue in other aspects of sports, basketball, football, whatever, we found a love in the sport of tennis. How do you get, whether you're male or female, the love of any sport into a child to get them to want to play? And that speaks volumes about, your guys were saying that, the players of today have to deal with these other sports they got to contend with, and they've got to fight that machine that's already bringing them in. But how do you get the love of a sport and make it known that this is a sport that, here's an aspect. All of these other sports that baseball, football, basketball have this mechanism that's going to bring all of these athletes to have a shelf life. Mm-hmm. You can be a college player, and you might be lucky enough to get to the pro ranks, and that's going to be it. You're pretty much going to be done with quote unquote competitive play. You might do a couple of what I want to say throwback kind of flashback kind of plays later in your career if you're that successful, but you won't be able to compete. However, this is one sport with the love of the sport that you can compete up until you are 100 years old.
Yeah. And you have these senior events,
right? And you have these, we know, you and I know about the gold balls.
Yeah.
That is one of the goals of a tennis player, to get a gold ball. That means you've played a national level tournament, and you either got very far in those national level tournaments, or even potentially won.
Right.
What other sport offers that? It's a lifetime of health benefits. How many people that are playing the sport of tennis do you see that are, that have diabetes or it's high blood pressure or things like that are plaguing this country? All of that can be attested to the fact that tennis is a sport of a lifetime. Not only that, it also offers you other things that, not to say that sports don't in general do this, but camaraderie. Most of the people that we know, we have formed lifetime friendships.
Sure.
So there's a social aspect.
And I think you hit you like close to a serious bullseye on that one too, as to why we don't see more black men at this level playing in the pros. And I remember Donald Young, he spoke about the fact of why it's tough for black men on the circuit. And he said, because first of all, there are not a lot of people that look like you.
Sure.
And you don't have that same camaraderie like a team sport. Like he said, even down to the music and the culture and stuff, you don't share that with them. You'll come in there and you don't listen to the same music. You don't have the same, any of that. And he said, it just makes it uncomfortable. It makes you not, and whereas in basketball, you don't have that, man. Basketball, you go in that locker room, everybody's jamming,
of course.
And it's like it's more of a, I don't want to say it's not communal, but there's more of a sense of there are people in there like you, they understand you, and you understand them because
you have
a lot
a
of
common
commonality
thread.
And I remember him saying you just don't have that at an ATP, and you're one of very few.
Right.
And I remember Chris Eubanks was on a video call, and I was, and they asked you could ask a question on the of the player, and I asked him. I wrote in and said, look, do you hang out with the other black players, a few of them? And he said, yeah, we try to when we can. Right. But it's just everybody's so separate. Everybody's, you're playing your own tournament here and there. So when they get an opportunity, they try to, but it's rare. They don't. And now during the off season, maybe some of them, if they're in the same area.
Right.
And I can imagine how that would not endear a lot of young black men to want to play the sport.
Sure.
At that level, I don't know.
Well, again, if someone were to show them, hey, this is a sport that, you can actually make a decent living if you're good enough. Yeah. But you had to have that opportunity. Sure. You think of back when some players that you and I know about, but the rest of our community might not know. You and I know who Robert Ryland is. Yeah. He was the first black professional to actually be offered in a spot to play in a tournament.
In a professional tournament. Yep.
He actually translated that later on into being the first professional tennis coach. Yep. Where he got certified.
And he's worked with a whole
bunch. He influenced a lot of players, a lot of throughout the year.
A lot of pros. He worked with a lot of pros.
And of course, there are a lot of other players outside of Arthur Ashe that were influenced back in the 70s and, had those opportunities. Sure. Yeah. And again, they were just as good, but of course they had the same problem that today's young folks have, where they didn't have anyone that they could see on TV or wherever they were watching the sport. That looked like them. And that's always going to be a problem.
I remember Arthur Ashe received a lot of criticism, I thought unfairly, because a lot of people said that he didn't do enough to bring more blacks into the game.
Well, no, that's incorrect.
That is definitely incorrect. Right. He did a lot. He brought, to bring blacks into the game. He can introduce you and take you to he knew coaches and stuff, and he did that. He did that for several players. Rodney was one of the players he worked with, and of course we know what happened with Yannick Noah. But it was tough because I can't remember who the player was, but he had some player that he had set him up to play on the satellite circuit in Europe, to play European tournaments. And the player went over to Europe, talented, I can't remember who, somebody we know, but I can't think of the name of him. But they say when he got there, he just, first of all, he's a long way from home. And once again, like Donald Young was talking about, there was nobody there that looked like him.
Sure.
Nobody, different languages, no culture. And he just couldn't do it.
Right. No one to relate to.
Yeah, and he just decided to come back home.
Right.
And you can't hear to get to understand the mindset of, and not just African-American male players, but just players who are not from that elite. A lot of these players are coming from middle class, lower middle class, some of them. And you have to understand that the appeal of football or basketball in these communities is huge because it's what they see.
Right.
And they know a lot of their heroes came from same kind of situation.
Absolutely.
Now that's changed a lot. Now you got a lot of kids, but I'm just saying they're somebody they can identify with. Somebody that can come to them and say, hey, yo, I grew up here. I know exactly. And it gives them something to aspire to. So they go out there and they're playing and practicing, and you go in any court and see these kids just putting in the time. Tennis doesn't have a lot of that. They just, and like we talked about before, I think tennis is, still suffers from the fact it's still considered an elitist sport. Yeah. And we here, just case in point, the only place you can play tennis right now is a club, a private club. You have to be, or a country club, or some type of facility where you have to pay money, all right, to play year round. All right.
But you could say that about all these other sports once you start to get organized.
Well,
you think basketball,
you can play basketball, you can play year round.
Yeah, but
you can play indoors year round. You can go to the Y, that's cheap. You can go to a play or any of those leagues, those little, you can play. So yeah, you can go to a gym somewhere.
Sure, but rec ball is different. We're talking about lifestyle change. Of course, anything where you do athletics is going to help your life. Because it's a stress reliever, it's good for your physical fitness, things of that nature. But if you're going to make it to where now this is a vehicle to change your life as a lifestyle change, where you are making potential money, you always have to get organized. And then that's the thing about organized sports.
But I think about it like this: if that was your goal, let's say you got athlete A. Mm-hmm. He's a talented basketball player.
Sure.
All right. And you got athlete B. He is a talented tennis player. All right. Going up the ranks. Athlete A, the basketball player, is going to have a whole lot more opportunities to play that sport and develop at the higher level than athlete B, who is a tennis player. Reason being, the system is already set up for him to move on up. And he can go AAU ball, he can do this, do that. And, it's already designed. For this kid, there's it's a complicated, complex network. Is he going to play league tennis? Is he going to play collegiately? If he's good enough to play pros, he's got to go on. He's got to get points. He's got to qualify for tournaments. That's all costs money. That's just divert. It's always boom boom. Now this costs money too, but this money is locked in. It's almost like you play this fee, and you can play the fee for AAU, and it'll cost you up front, but it covers you for all A. This is different. Tennis, it's money for this. Then you got to get the trainers, and you got to get this, and there's just so much that it makes it almost like, I don't want to say it's more of a complicated network. Oh, and then when you throw in the socioeconomic, the socio part, really throws us off on this one too, because I remember listening to somebody who was talking about how in the past it was easier for a lot of blacks to move and matriculate into the sport because they had black clubs that would bring these kids in and develop them.
Okay, so that's just a different vehicle. I would disagree with. Sure, there again, like I said, there are more visible athletes that today's child can see that's playing the sport of basketball. But think about it. To get to that level, what do you have to be? I mean, how many LeBron James aren't there? First of all, you can't teach size.
No, you can't.
But the thing is, you can teach.
You're right. You can't teach size, but if you're a young black man and you are 6'3", are they going to say, "Oh man, you make a great tennis player"? No, they're going to say you need to play basketball.
John Lucas was.
Yeah, but John Lucas was an anomaly. He's an exception. But he was a good tennis player. But what I'm saying is, why is there only one John Lucas? Why is there only one that played basketball and tennis? I mean,
that would be the question to ask.
Yeah,
right.
There are a whole lot that play basketball.
That's my whole point. Again, why aren't there a whole lot that are playing basketball?
Because John Lucas wanted to play tennis. He grew up playing tennis, and he wanted to play tennis.
And you're feeding into what I'm saying. Why can't we get a kid to want to play tennis? Why can't we instill the love of the sport?
I agree. But that comes with what? All these other things we talked about earlier that need to become in there to
basketball,
make them feel
football,
comfortable.
They already have their mechanisms to build on those that can excel.
Yeah.
On the tennis side, we also have maybe not as many dollars or maybe not as widespread, but there is a mechanism for kids to get the best training if they show the interest and the level of ability, just like any other sport. But that's just it.
Yeah. But it's I still think it's going to be rough, and I think it's a trickier road, man. It's just,
roads are always going to be difficult. Right. And again, at the end of the day, the top level professional athletes that we see on television today has just as much difficulty getting to their level as it is for the Joe Blow tennis player to get past that. But all sports, if you're good enough and you have the interest, you're going to be able to get bare minimum an education.
Sure. I mean, that's great. That's what you want to aspire to, definitely. And if you're better, you can move on and be able to earn a living at it.
Right.
And we understand that. I'm just saying, we're asking why are there not more African-American males doing that?
Right.
And I think we both agree that there are just too many, for the men, there are too many other options out there. There are too many in football and basketball and baseball and now soccer.
Right.
And so, you said I watched a European soccer match the other day, and like 4 or 5 of the players were African-American males.
Right.
On a European soccer team.
Sure.
And they were good. And you think, oh my gosh, what kind of tennis players would they have been? But, so I'm just saying, it's too much competition for the men. There's just too many other options, too much competition for that kid, for that athlete. And I don't know what tennis can do that can change that at this point. It's just, it is what it is. Well, and I'm hoping, but I don't think we will ever I don't think there'll ever be a period of time where we will have, like, en masse, like on the women's side, we'll have, 7, 8, 9 African Americans in the top 100 in the world. That ain't gonna happen.
Well,
it's just not. It's just not. If it happens, it would be
unlikely.
A fluke.
But
I just feel like if it happens, it would be a fluke. I'm not saying it can't happen,
right,
but it would be a fluke.
It certainly hasn't happened thus far. The onesie twosies where we've had the James Blakes and the Malavai Washingtons of the world after Arthur has come up, and now Francis.
One outside of Ash. Only one of all those players got to a Grand Slam final.
Right. And again,
only one.
But
no one has won.
If you throw more players at the sport,
I
you
agree.
Probably would have.
I agree. How do we get more? Then that's the question. How do we get more?
And that's been my whole question.
Right.
Why can't we get a child to love the sport as much as they love basketball? Who's to say? Look, believe it or not, I think I was a much better basketball player than I ever was a tennis player. Yeah. And a lot of people think that I'm a pretty darn good tennis player. Mm-hmm. But they never really saw the love that I had for the sport of basketball and my understanding of it. And that's my whole point. Sure. My whole point is, how do we make those opportunities and get a child to see that, you're not going to be, you can't grow into 6'10" if your genetics say you're not going to be 6'10". Most average adults are going to be what? 6'1", 6'2". Guess what? That's almost perfect size to be a tennis player.
Yeah.
If you have any athletic ability, if you can play soccer, you're used to running. Well, guess
great
what?
Footwork.
That means you've got all the skill set to be a great tennis player.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Hand-eye coordination. Isn't that what basketball is all about? Hand-eye coordination, dribbling the ball.
And you have all the great skill sets, but then you're going to have the mindset to want to devote and play tennis.
I'm not saying I have the answers. Right. I'm just saying I'm posing the question. Why aren't we given? Yeah, like I said, all things being equal, tennis has a lot more to offer. You can play it for all your life. But
Bruh, you preaching to the choir.
Sure.
I know
but,
that.
And
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to.
I don't see it happening.
Okay, so you're doubting it, but I'm just saying, look, we gotta do something, or how do we make it so much that it's much more attractive?
Sure. What I feel like we have the right idea, and I think we have the things that could make that happen, but you're going to have people who are willing to buy it, who are willing to sponsor. Now, sure, we have the National Junior Tennis League, which is great. It's getting a lot of kids into the sport. A lot of them are able to develop and get education. How many kids have been educated?
Absolutely.
A lot.
That's what Arthur wanted.
Education. That's what Arthur Ashe wanted. Excuse me. More so than even being a professional tennis player. I don't think he would like for that to happen, but I think his main thing was to get them into sport. And now, if we're trying to build on that, okay, the only way you can get to that next level is you have to become a member of one of these elite academies. I mean, that's just that's the mechanism now. But, you can't, back in the days when you can just practice on your own and play some tournaments and move, that doesn't happen anymore.
But again, it doesn't happen even if you're playing college football.
Right.
Alabama only recruits those 5-star athletes. That's why Alabama, in recent memory, has been Alabama winning championships.
All of them.
So the same thing applies, know.
Yeah, well, look at that. But see, you think on that token, by that, when you look at the Alabamas and the Auburns and the Penn States, Georgias, and all these big college teams, right? The 98% of those athletes are American homegrown athletes.
Sure.
That they have brought up. And there's a whole lot of them. How many colleges and universities got football teams now? They're like hundreds and thousands, probably in the millions. I mean, it's just a lot. Let's take it to tennis now. All right. Well, first of all, you got 60 players on a football team. You're only going to have 15 at the most on a tennis team. Right. I mean, on a football team, you got 60 some players on a team, but on tennis, you got smaller numbers. And then of those numbers, now we have, with the influx of the European players and stuff, you're only going to have, how many spots are you going to be available for an American to get on that team on the top level? Not very many. I mean, it's not going to be, so you weed them out there. Then black players.
Right.
If they're really, really good, they'll get in somewhere.
Sure.
But for the rank and file, and now before the avenue that most of them went in through was the HBCUs.
Right.
Well, now a lot of HBCUs are dropping their tennis programs. Yeah, they don't have the funding and the money.
Have the funding and the money. And,
so now, where's that aspiring kid that had that little bit of talent, but it's not going to be? He maybe didn't have the money to get into any elite training, elite academy. He's not going to be. He's not right off the bat. Maybe wasn't a D1 type player. Didn't have it. How's he going to get in? He can't get in HBCU now because now most of those programs are dropping their tennis programs. So where is he going to go? How's he going to get in the mix?
Well, again, you're asking the question that
I'm just throwing it out. No, I'm not asking. That's rhetorical. I mean, I don't know an answer to that. I don't know where it's coming from. That's why I'm saying, for us to think that there's some magic thing that's going to happen that's going to bring more black men into the sport at this moment, the way the system is structured, I don't see that happening. I don't see how it can happen. Right. It's just, the socioeconomics of this thing now rears its ugly head. And that we have to understand that a lot of the potential athletes that could be in tennis are not going to ever be in tennis. And tennis is not going to go out of its way to pull them in. They would have to do something like the bigger sports do. And I don't think the bodies, I don't think they're capable. I don't think there's 100% buy-in by them to do this. They want to have them, but they're not doing what it takes to get them.
And overall, that's what's wrong with American tennis on the men's side as it is.
Yeah.
But again, my whole point was this. How do you get a kid to have the love of the sport to then go on and do greater things? Right. You're talking about players playing collegiately or, aspiring to be the rank and file professional level, and if one or two get to the highest levels of the sport, sure, that's great. But it starts at the grassroots, and that's my question. At this point, we have similar opportunities. Yes, the opportunities are there. They are difficult, just like trying to reach any level. There may be a lot of hoops to get through, but again, if you cultivate it correctly, I don't see why we can't. Now, whether it's going to happen or not, that's a different story.
Yeah.
My whole point is just this. We grew up with the love. Why can't we get kids today to grow up with the love? Too many different things.
I think they need to see, first of all, like that's why Francis Tiafoe is an important player right now. I mean, they need to see black players playing at that upper level. They need to be able to see them go out there and dream that they can do that. That's what the black women, young black girls have seen in Venus and Serena and all these other players that have come up before them. And so they need to see more of that. If you just see Francis Tiafoe now I tell you, Ben Shelton could be a very important player
absolutely.
right now.
Again, he doesn't have to be an African American. He's just an American who is inspiring. But we haven't had a player that's been inspiring on the men's side since, I don't want to say Andy Roddick because he really wasn't that inspiring, but Andre Agassi was. I mean, not to say that he wasn't a good player, but Andy, big corn husker from the middle states. He's not your typical tennis player.
Okay.
But Andre Agassi, smaller build,
right?
Different background, immigrant background. That's much more appealing. Plus, he had the flair, the flash. His battles with Pete Sampras were much more appealing to this audience in this country, as opposed to a lone wolf in Andy Roddick.
Right.
And I'm not saying I'm not throwing darts at Andy Roddick because he was the last Grand Slam American winner. So of course, but not that inspiring. But when you look at the players like an Arthur Ashe, like a Pete Sampras, like a Jimmy Connors, like a John McEnroe, that's what we need to see. And that, not only from the African American side. I
agree with you.
But that's what we're trying to get to.
I agree with you. But if we are trying to zero in on increasing the participation of young African American males into the game that can reach that higher level, they need to see black players playing.
Oh, no question.
I love Agassi. I love Sampras. I love all of them. I love watching them. They were great. They were awesome. But as far I'm just saying the impact that if we get a black, think about just Tiafoe right now.
Sure.
People want to see him play.
Oh, yeah.
He's got all of those things, man. He's extremely athletic.
Right.
His game is developing and growing. He's out there on the court. He's smart tennis player, and he's got that panache, man. He's got with the crazy outfits, his attitude, ripping his shirt off, flexing and stuff. That's what will grow the sport for as far as African American boys seeing that. Oh man, that is what's going to bring. That's what we love to see. We love to see Jordan dunk. We love to see Kobe throwing. We love to see that boom.
Right.
And right now Francis we don't have that boom in the game, but Francis can bring that boom.
Sure.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Again, like you said before, you're preaching to the choir. I'm preaching to the choir. My question again has always been, why?
Yeah.
What can we do to bring that love of the sport, of any sport?
I'm just telling
to a kid.
You and I both know to bring black kids in, you got to have some tennis players with some swagger.
Yeah.
They got to have some swagger.
So again,
they got to, and who brings that better than the African-American athlete?
Absolutely.
They bring the swagger. Right. And I love tennis and I love the style, but most of them don't have that swagger.
Talking about the
Francis
swagger.
got the swagger.
Francis got the swagger. Not that he's African American, but
Nick Kyrgios
has a swagger.
He got the swagger.
Right.
People love it. And you go to his matches.
Right. You go
and
watch.
when he goes to DC,
right.
Oh man, African Americans love to see him play. Right. And they fill it up. And he responds to that, you know. And so that's all I'm saying, man. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah,
and maybe we can look at some of these juniors coming up the ranks to see if we got somebody that has it, But I don't know, man. It's just going. If we're waiting for it to happen, we're going to be waiting a little while.
Yeah, I
just don't see it.
Yeah, but just to wrap this up,
Yeah.
Like I said, we Americans, we're not hungry. Black, white, doesn't matter. We're just not hungry enough to really take advantage of whatever obstacles we have. When we have the perceived athletic ability that's already there on the world stage. You look at a Carlos Alcaraz, you look at Novak Djokovic. They're just as athletic as anybody else.
Yes, they are.
Except, guess what? They're hungry.
Yeah, they're hungry.
And we're not hungry. So,
and think about, we'll go back to this again. We talked about this before, but we don't have government-backed federation that's going to open up that pool.
I would beg to differ, and here's why.
Which one is it in the United States?
Again, the USTA does the exact same thing that the French Tennis Federation does. You're talking about an amount. The USTA's got plenty of backing. They've got plenty of dollars. Whether it's
they do.
Whether it's $20 billion, whether it's $50 billion. When you reach that level of dollars, it really doesn't matter because your program is self-sustaining and you can get whoever you want. But that's another topic.
Right, that's another topic. And I agree, but you still have the ability to work from a larger pool of players.
Sure, but the USTA has those mechanisms as well. And I've seen them. I mean,
I'll take your word for it.
I've seen them. They're there.
It's just
that there's no, like I said,
the real thing is
they could do better.
They could do better.
That's subjective, but
that is true.
At the end of the day,
and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're not attempting. They are they've done some great things. I'm a USTA member, and I know and we know what they do.
Sure.
And to try to bring it in, I just, but
that's a topic for a different discussion.
Let's discuss that.
But again, at the end of the day, we're not hungry. That's all I want to say.
All right.
And to take advantage of our perceived athletic ability in this sport would be do volumes. You look at what Coco's doing. Look at what the Williams sisters have done. Why did they dominate? Why are they so good? Look at Sloane. She is perceived to be, from her background, a superior athlete. And that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
We've got the athletic ability, we've got the talent, but why aren't we hungry? Why don't we have the love? And that's where I'd like to leave it.
Okay. I think, but just I agree with you, but I just think there's some players out there that would be hungry. They just got to be given a chance to get up in the game. Let's see if we can.
Like I said, but it starts with the love. That's my whole point.
Yeah.
But I think this has been a good good podcast.
That's something to think about. And we want people to let us know, man, what you think. If you have ideas, we just sitting here talking.
Yeah, we're just sitting here talking.
But we'd like to hear your thoughts out there too. What you think, if any ideas or why we haven't had that young African American man major jump up since to get it to a final since Malavia, Washington. How long ago was that? 20, 30 some years ago?
It's been since the 90s, 96.
Exactly. So see what's going out there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping and praying that there's some junior coming up. I'm hoping Francis can get through. I think Tiafo could do it, man, and he would inspire so many other people. Will it happen? I don't know, but I think he's very important. And like I said, we'll keep an eye on Ben Shelton. We need to look at Chris Eubanks is another.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a little older, but
he's a little older, but he's got that big serve. I like to see him put a little more meat on his bones, man. He's just so skinny.
He's too tall and skinny.
But I'm just saying these are some young players out there, and we'll look and see who's coming up in the ranks that might have a chance.
Yeah.
We never know. But Michael Moe is another one. Who's good athlete. Just not been able. He had a good showing at Australia for him. He
Sure. All right. Well, it sounds like we spent a good time talking about it. And again, it's great to bring that up during this month, Black History Month here. And so hopefully going forward, we can come up with some more controversial or appealing topics to talk about. At the end of the day, we still love this sport.
Oh, man, always. It's always love, man. Always love.
Always. So if you can reach out to us on Twitter, Instagram, or our email, everything's listed down below. And just give us our thoughts. So,
hit us up.
As always, we'd like to wrap it up.
Send them likes out too.
Yes, please. And hit the subscribe button.
Yeah.
All right. So as we always say, go hit a tennis ball.
Hey, Ruffin.